Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to cover the rear panel of the MPC Live 2. Check it out! If you take a look at the rear panel on the MPC Live 2, if you look at this side of the rear panel, you'll see the power button. So the power button is kind of self-explanatory. You just push it in and then it turns on the MPC. And if you want to turn off the MPC, you just push the power button again, and it's going to give you an option to turn it off and save your progress or discard your progress. So next to your power button, you actually have your power input. So if you go ahead and take this right here, this cable that comes with it, and you plug it in, it's going to charge your battery, and it's also going to enable your MPC to turn on if you don't have any charge. Now, if you look here, there's a light that comes on when it is charging, and once it's full of charge, that light's going to actually turn off. And if you don't have it plugged in, it'll turn off automatically. So this way, you know, when you put in the power cable, it's actually charging. So next to the power input, you're going to see your link port. Now this link port takes standard Ethernet cables, and you can connect this to different things to sync your actual MPC using Ableton Link. Now Ableton Link also works over Wi-Fi, so you don't necessarily have to use the Ethernet port for that, but it is there for your convenience. Next to your link port is a power adapter restraint. What that does is you can actually put your cable into here, and this way, if you bump into it or anything while it's on your desk, it pulls here instead of your power input, so it doesn't damage your power input. Next to the power adapter restraint is a USB-B port. So with your MPC came a blue cable, and what you got to do, if you want, is take your cable that came with your MPC, plug it in here, and then you take the other end, and you put the other end inside of your computer, and that's going to enable you to do a few things. It's going to enable you to go into controller mode and control the software. And also when you're in controller mode, if you have any hard drives or any SD cards or USB drives, those will show up inside of the computer for you. And you need to make sure to eject those whenever you do disconnect from controller mode. Next to the USB port, there are two USB-A ports. Now these are good for connecting things like flash drives. So here's a flash drive that can go into here, right? And you can also connect MIDI keyboards, and it will send MIDI messages through that USB port. So if you take any compatible keyboard, you plug in your USB cable to the keyboard, and you plug the other end into your MPC. And in this way, you're going to be able to play the keys on your keyboard, and it will trigger sounds within the MPC. So you have a few things next to that port. You could take a compatible SD card, plug it right in here. I haven't found one that hasn't worked. I use these particular ones usually, these SanDisk. These work fine. You just plug it right in there, and you're going to be able to save files onto that, load samples onto that. You know, you could connect that SD card to your computer and download samples onto the SD card and then plug it in, and you'll be able to access that through the browser. And you can use that SD card slot instead of like one of these USB ports. Say you have two different devices you want to connect. You know, you can spare your USB-A ports and use the SD card. So right next to your SD card slot are your CV/gate ports. So you're going to be able to put these little cables, you're going to be able to plug it right into here, and then that can go into your compatible synthesizer or drum machine or whatever you have that you want to use your CV gates with. So if you look, it says 1/5, 2/6, 3/7, and then 4/8. So you can actually get access to two different messages at a time through one of those, but you'll need some kind of stereo splitter like this, and then you plug that in, and you plug your two other little mini cables into here. You know, and these are like 3.5 millimeter cables. Then you'll have two different CV options to go into your gear out of one particular port. If you're enjoying this video or if you're gaining value out of it, give it a thumbs up below. Share it to somebody who wants this information. I appreciate you for doing that. Now below your SD card and your CV gate slots is your MIDI in and MIDI out. So you can use MIDI for MIDI sync, and you can use it for a few different things like MIDI CC messages. You could turn the knob and it'll affect different things inside of there. If you have a compatible keyboard, you could press the keys, and the keys will actually trigger sounds within the MPC when you set it up. And you need to have a little cable like this, and this cable right here will go into here. So if I had a MIDI keyboard and I plug that in, and then I use the other side to go into the MIDI keyboard. Now this one doesn't have it, but say there was a plug right there, I could plug that in. So then you can use MIDI to input the keys on your MIDI controller and the knobs here with CC values. And you have a couple options there. You could also go MIDI out of here and then go into a synthesizer or a drum machine. And you can use your keyboard to actually play that drum machine through the MPC. So that's what's really cool about MIDI in this regard. You have 2 MIDI ins and 2 MIDI outs, and it's standard MIDI, so you're going to have 16 different channels on each one of those. Right next to your MIDI are your inputs, so you have left and right line inputs here, and you have left and right phono inputs here. And next to that, you have a ground terminal. If you're connecting a turntable that has phono outputs, you could connect it here and you can ground it here. One thing you do need to take notice of is this switch here. So if you're using line in, you turn it to the line side, and that's going to be these 2 inputs. And if you're using your turntable or phono, you turn it onto phono right there, and then you use these 2 inputs. And you can only use one set of inputs at a time, and they do show up as input 1 and 2 inside of your MPC Live 2. So if you look at these cables, you can put your cables in here. But right here, this is for your ground terminal. You put that in your ground terminal, and then that way it prevents some of the noise or background noise. Now next to your line phono switch is the knob for your input. So this actually controls your record volume. So if you have it turned all the way down, you're not going to hear anything, even if your record's playing. But if you turn it up, you'll start to hear your record playing, and you basically set the level according to what what the meter is on your MPC Live. Now you don't want to overdo it and go too hot. You might get some distortion in your recording. So you do have to find the correct level, and you do that in the sampler. So next to that, you have your Kingston lock slot. So you use this to secure your device to a desk in case you're at school or in public somewhere where you don't want somebody to steal your MPC Live 2. You can use that to secure it to your desk. So next to that, you have your line out. So this is your master line out, which is the main line 1 and 2 that comes out. And you can control the volume of these with the volume button on the top. And you also have, then you have output 3 and 4, 5 and 6. So these can come out, and that could be useful for different things. If you're playing live and you want to have bass come out of one of the outputs and you can adjust it with your mixer, you could do that. So next to your outputs, you do have a speaker on and off. Now, what that's going to do, if you have it on up right here where it says speaker, it's actually going to give you some sound coming from the speaker that's on top of your MPC. Now, if you have external speakers or you're using headphones, you don't need that speaker. You could turn it off and you don't have to worry about anything. And that's one thing about this too. If you're going line out of your master here, you can connect these into your studio monitors or your audio interface for your computer so you can actually monitor and hear what you're doing. But the cool thing about the MPC Live, it does have that speaker that you can turn on in the front in case you're out and about and you want to use the battery and you don't have your studio monitors on you. You can use the speaker that's on the top. So next to that speaker switch is a phones out. This is for your headphones. So what you got to do is take your headphone. So if your headphones have a mini jack, you might have to use this adapter, and then you use an adapter and you plug right into here. And that's going to go 1/4 inch in, and that's a stereo headphone output. And you can control that with the knob on the front as well. So you do need to be careful when you do plug those in. If you have it turned all the way up, make sure you don't, basically. So you don't want to hurt your ears. Just turn it down when you plug it in and then turn it up as you need it. So there you have it. That's all the ports and options on your rear panel of your MPC Live 2. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. My name is Matthew. Continue to create music, and we'll talk soon.